Being in a tech ecosystem, we don't have a lot of women. For me to be here is proof that women can do it, women can be leaders, and I hope to inspire other women, especially young African women, to be bold and courageous, follow their passions, and when they're offered that seat at the table, to take it and take the front seat at changing the African narrative.
Since I joined Impact Africa Network, my thinking has really been expanded. I now for sure believe that if I put my mind and time into something, I can bring life-changing ideas into fruition.
The culture at IAN encourages continual learning. This makes someone to source for outlets for learning, opportunities for growth in order to continually ensure that they do the best at their job. Also working with Mark, who has this great vision for changing the African narrative. He wants to take us on that journey with him, pushes you to the limit, pushes you to want to be better.
My thinking has changed from looking for problems to being a solution provider. That way, I will stop worrying and actually do something.
I really enjoy being a leader and at the same time being a student. At Impact Africa Network, there's a lot of continuous learning and development. So it gives you this hunger for knowledge. It pushes you to be the best possible version of yourself, because you cannot change the African narrative being anything less.
At Impact Africa Network, we bet on the women. We believe women are much more effective at leading and nurturing complex people-centric systems, and startups are the quintessential people-centric systems of our day.
As the Women of Impact Africa Network, we will be hosting a livecast series with global female leaders and change makers, having conversations with the intent of inspiring a new generation of female leaders just like ourselves. If you or someone you know should be part of this conversation, we would love to host you. Talk to us.
You can also be a change maker by helping us create more leadership opportunities for women by donating today. IAN is a registered US non-profit charitable entity under Section 501c3.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Damaris Kongin, and this is Power to Our Women livecast series, and you're joining us for season 2, the last episode of season 2 of the livecast series, where we host conversations with global female leaders and change makers who share their stories with the intent of inspiring a new generation of female leaders in Africa. And how did we come up with this amazing show? At IAN, at Impact Africa Network, we believe that women are much more effective at nurturing, leading actually, and nurturing people-centric system. And essentially, startups are the people-centric systems of our day. So at Impact Africa Network, we provide 12-month innovation fellowships to recent college graduates, allowing them to work on well-vetted ideas under the guidance of a strong leadership team and mentor network. And part of the mentor network is what we have here, the Power to Women livecast series. The goal of all this is to develop innovation leaders and launch startups. So we are happy to have another guest today discussing another very timely conversation, one that is very much urgent, if I may say. So I'll actually introduce my co-host, who will introduce our special guest for today. We have Victoria Chebet. She is one of the donor and partner relations leads of Impact Africa Network. And she'll be hosting this show with me today. Victoria, karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Damaris. It's been such a roller coaster being here at Power to Our Women. It's just an exciting session. Always exciting to hear from very phenomenal women. And today we'll be having one amazing lady. I've been listening to some of the topics that she's been talking about, and I can tell that she's very passionate about women and women taking up spaces wherever they are. So I will just do a very brief bio intro, because I know that if I am the one to talk about it, it's going to be I feel like I will not do justice to it. So I'm just going to talk very brief. Joti Balani is the one who will be joining us today. She's the founder of Freshriver AI. And she will be talking more about that. And she leads transformative innovations at Fortune 100 enterprises to create emotional, economic, and brand value with her team, who represent the empowered human race in all dimensions. So she's also a technology advisor and Sherpani at Fempeak.ai, empowering and preparing the next generation of female leaders to solve critical global problems in business and society with courage, creativity, and technology. So she's also leads Open Voice Network's Industry Advisory Council to share her conversational AI framework with the industry, and is a co-founder of Women in Voice New Jersey, the USA chapter. So as you can see from her bio, she's very passionate about women. So I'm really excited to bring her forth to talk more about herself and her achievements, but also dig deep into the topic of the day. So I will let Damaris continue. And welcome.
Welcome, Joti. I think she can tell us more about herself. I think she has quite the profile, but she can best describe what that means to her. Yeah.
Well, thank you both. Thank you both for the opportunity to speak here. I'm really excited about the work that Impact Africa is having. I think it's time, and it's the right time, I think, given everything going on globally. So once again, I'm honored to have this opportunity to speak. So I'm Joti Balani. I am founder and managing director of Freshriver AI. I started focusing on this space about 3 years ago, deeply, as enterprises started to take AI into their solving business problems, part of their framework. So I grew up as a technologist myself. I was in the corporate side of the world for 20 years. First as a software engineer, then as a product developer, and then marketing, and just growing through the ranks. And going through the corporate career teaches you a lot of things, especially being a brown female immigrant in the United States. I've been very lucky and blessed to have great mentors, including a lot of men, guiding me along the way, but a lot of challenges also. So the one thing that's always kept me going and motivated is, my father said to me, I'm one of 3 girls. I'm the youngest of 3 daughters. We did not have any brothers. And my father said to me, you can do anything a man can do. There is nothing that will hold you back. And so I grew up never thinking that, because I'm a woman, I cannot do it, because both my parents, imbibed in us early on in our psyche that, we're able to do it. So my sisters also are very successful in what they do. So I'm hoping to share this because not all women are lucky enough to have great mentors. So this is important to me. As I left my corporate career and created this company, I wanted to create a new company that takes women into the next leadership roles in society, because we do need it. We need the entire human race represented. So, my thought on, men and women is that for women to win, men don't have to lose. So I'm also very passionate about making sure that we have great representation. So that's a little bit about me. We're happy to cover or dive in as you ladies decide.
Awesome. I like how you mentioned that you have many mentors, and you said including men. So it's very important having that, recognizing all the forces that played to bring you to where you are right now. And I think one thing we usually want our audience to see is that, Rome wasn't built in a day. You've had a couple of transitions in your career for you to get to this level where you decided that this is the path you want to take. What really advised that transition into founding this organization? What was that aha moment that, okay, it's time for me to actually take this leap and get things going?
So that actually has been the defining moment, I think, of my life. Towards the end of my corporate career, I realized that I was burnt out. It took me about 2 years to sort of recover, take care of myself. And I always tell everybody, you have to take care of your body, mind, and soul, and really look for the problem that you want to solve. So what guided me as I wrote down, and I still have my notes from 3 years ago when I envisioned what I wanted to do. And the problem I wanted to solve is more at a human level. I said, okay, what do I have? What are my superpowers? I always tell everybody that I believe we are born into this world with superpowers, and we spend our lifetime discovering them and to help solve problems for others and the world. That to me really led me to leverage, what was the emerging technology. So what I looked for was what technologies are going to define the coming world. And as I looked at AI, I looked at blockchain, I looked at several other emerging tech. So in my 20 years of my corporate career, I rode the wave of telecoms, where, fiber optic networks, et cetera, were changing the way the internet had expanded, and all the things that were built on top of it. So I had learned how to harness an emerging technology. So I took that framework and said, as AI, and I fell into it, right? It was somebody showing me, my husband actually has his own company with his co-founder in the healthcare space. And he started to show me how they were overlaying voice AI and Alexa skill, in fact, on top of their healthcare platform. And in probing, I found out, well, what problem is it really solving? Because I'm always about not having tech lead the way, but the problem statement lead the way and finding the right tech. And it was clear at the time that it was helping people with who are chronically ill, especially the elderly, who are having a difficult time using mobile and web applications to record their symptoms, their medications, have they taken it on time, to voice natural language. So by using their natural language, they're able to answer the questions and really move their healthcare forward. So I was really inspired, and I said, I think this tech really has a lot of promise. And from that point on, I started to do consulting work, because the one thing I was sure that I did not want to do, I did not want to go back into being in the traditional corporate space as an employee. So as much as what drove me into it was also what I did not want to do, you have to be very clear. And it takes time, right? What you don't want as much as what you want, because it's an adventure. And so I started with, the first project, and then the second project. And then very quickly, in a span of 12 months, people started to say, you have figured so much out in a short period of time. And it wasn't that, I'm superior to anybody. It is, I focused in on the problem I wanted to solve, the kind of projects that I was getting, but I was clear that I need to look for the right problem. So for me, AI is an enabler. It's really shifting the mindset on what I call use case extraction. Think about the problem that's in front of you, but you have to think about it in a different way. You cannot use the same approach that you've used to create mobile apps and web apps in this new technology, which is AI. It's very different in the way it's built, but you also have to think about how the users will be using technology. It's more now natural than it is if you're going to be swiping and clicking, where there's all, standard happy paths way, but we can, dive into that a little bit more. So that's really how I fell into it. I was driven by, what problem do I really want to solve in a meaningful way? Not just for the sake of helping companies make money, but if you solve the right problem, money will be a pleasant outcome. That's what I believe in. I've never chased, money for the sake of it, but it's really about solving the right problem that's needed.
I think what has stood out is how you've said, let the problem statement lead the way, and then find the right technology for it. So I've seen a lot of self-awareness in how you try to discover what really suits you, what exactly do you want to actually solve, and understanding also what your strengths are, and leveraging technology to, it's like merging all those factors to come up with a career that you're actually passionate about. There's also one thing I think is one of the aspects in that you're actually involved in. You speak a lot about conversational AI, and how that is also very impactful right now. Maybe you can speak a little bit more about that.
Sure. So conversational AI is one branch of AI, right? There are many, many branches. AI was actually created in the 1950s, and it only started to take hold over the last, I would say, decade, as compute and storage became cheaper and more accessible to everybody, with the cloud technologies. So conversational AI, as the branch started taking hold, I would say the last 3 to 4 years, because the technology got better and better. AI is fueled by data. So data fuels AI, and AI fuels data. So you really have to think of those two things in tandem. So conversational AI is going to change the way humans interact with each other in society and in business. So imagine being able to speak in your own language, not just English, but in the way like we are communicating right now, we are entering a world, it's not perfect yet, but we are entering a world where machines are able to understand what we're saying without us having to speak in the way that they would understand it, if that makes sense. So we now have systems that can record what the three of us are speaking and reproduce it. We have systems where it can now respond. We could be having an AI assistant sitting here helping us with our conversation. I mean, that's how powerful this has become. I'm sure everybody's already seen, chat bots and voice bots. You're seeing these little bots appear in your messaging channel, on websites, your favorite airline or your bank. The last 2 years, especially, have accelerated the deployment of this kind of technology more broadly for a couple of reasons, right? Everybody's gone remote. Everybody is now on the digital channels more than ever. I don't think we'll ever go back to, being in the office where there's face to face. So, for example, how do HR teams manage large employees? Because they're not going to be adding more HR people. So you need an AI assistant to help you to manage employees, right? Contact centers. So I've had a recent client ask us to say, hey, can you help us replace 30% of our staff in our contact center? So human jobs are also going to be impacted. So, 3 years ago, when you asked me when I entered this space, what I wrote down was, I know that if I do my job really well, and I am doing, a really good job, but what that means is if I bring these AI assistants to life, jobs will be lost. And I knew that it was not that we should not do it. It will get done, but it has to be done responsibly. So we're looking at this kind of technology actually taking human jobs. And it's not where people might think that it's the, if you say low-level jobs and mid-level jobs and executive jobs, it's actually penetrating all three. In fact, people that will keep the jobs that they do, it'll change your job. It will change the way that you are doing your job. So the goal is to make sure that you are relevant in this technology. You are using the AI assistants to free you to do more higher level thinking work. That's the way to think about this, right? If you can define someone's job based on the steps that they do, the data that they need, the content that they need, it can actually, you can absolutely train an AI assistant. That's how the technology is getting better and better. So people get very afraid that, my job's going to go. I said, don't be afraid. Have courage. Rethink how your job should be, while working with it. So that's sort of the advice I give everybody. And people who are about to lose their jobs, those are the very same people, especially women, that I've been training for the last 2 years to say, you need to shift from being a contact center agent to becoming a conversation designer for the AI assistant to help the same customers you were helping. And you can take care of higher level work, right? So it's a shift in mindset about what the tech has to be. There shouldn't be fear. Education will remove the fear, right, of what the space is going to do.
Awesome. I was actually hoping you would talk about that bit, because so many people fear that AI is coming to completely, replace, and rather it's about, for conversational AI to actually even be fully experienced, it needs that human involvement. So I think bringing up that point is it's very, very important. I think Vicky, you can take it up.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Joti. You have been speaking gems, so many things to echo back, but I'll go to the next question. And we've talked about it a little bit, talking about courage. So on your bio, you actually talk about how you have been preparing the next generation of female leaders to solve critical global problems in business and society. But the most important thing you say is with creativity, empathy, and technology. So I just want us to continue talking about that a little bit. So could you just touch on what exactly you mean when you say this? Yes.
Sure. So, one of the big problems we've got with the general approach to solving problems is that technology is like a hammer looking for a nail, right? So for me, it has to be responsible humans that have to create AI and handle AI. there is actually, and we already have it, AI falling into the wrong hands for bad actors can cause a lot of harm. It has been causing a lot of harm. So to me, it's about getting people that have the emotional and intellectual intelligence, and we all do. If you think about the human brain, you think about men and women and the entire gender spectrum, right? Each of us has a different way of thinking about problem solving. And if we get more women into this field, especially, right? Women are wired differently than men. We need both. You cannot have just one. We need the entire human race representing the building of these systems. So when I talk about creativity and I talk about empathy, the right kind of empathy, I always tell people the qualifications for this job, there's three. You need to have integrity, the right kind of empathy, and a fire in the belly to learn and solve problems. That are the true requirements to enter this field. Everything else can be learned. I always say technology is a tool. Anybody can learn how to use any technology, but if you have the right mindset, the right kind of empathy on what problem you're solving, and it's always a gray area, right? It's never black and white. There are examples of deployments where in the US and some states, they have deployed AI systems where people's medical insurance benefits are being handled, and there's no humans, involved in the process, and so people have been losing their benefits, and it's so hard for them to go back to a state, the nation state, and go, "Hey, I've lost my benefits because your AI made the wrong decision." Well, how do we counter that? It has got to be the right humans sitting, and that's one of the reasons I entered this field. Because I said, I have two choices. Either I'm going to have a say in how this gets done, or I will be a recipient of however else it's getting built, right? Big tech is in this space, but we need to keep technology honest in how it has to be deployed. You need people that are ethical. Ethics, philosophy, psychology are underpinnings for this. So that's really where I look for folks that, even as I'm building my team to go into these projects, I need people with those three things, right? Everything else, I say, you will learn. I cannot teach anybody integrity. I cannot, while it can be taught, it's not in my scope to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. But there is one thing you're talking about that struck me. What do you mean when you say the right kind of empathy? And is that something you can teach?
I get that question a lot because empathy can also be, as an example, if you're seeing, a fight happening, and it's a violent fight. You have a gun, and you're saying, "Okay, I have to stop this. I'm going to shoot somebody to stop the fight." Is that the right kind of empathy? Because you have empathy for what's going on. You side with one person, but you kill the other person. What is the right kind of empathy? And I'm not saying these are easy answers, but by saying the right kind of empathy, people stop and think. I said, stop and think. And there's always, cost benefit, risk benefits, but think before you make the decisions that you're going to be making. Because when you deploy AI solutions like conversational AI, you have the power in your hands to change someone's life for the good or for bad. So think about what you want to do.
I see why it's so important to have empathy when you're in the field of AI, because AI is about being responsible. It's impacting more than just that person's life. It's impacting everything about human generation, right?
That's correct.
So it's all about responsibility. So thank you, Joti. You can go.
Okay. Now to, I think, more of the theme, rather, the topic of today. And it was mostly also advised by a statistic that we found by the World Economic Forum, which stated that according to the 2018 Global Gender Gap Report, out of the AI professionals that are in existence right now, only 22% of them are female, compared to 78% who are male. And this is despite the increasing expansion of AI, which is creating the demand for a new range of skills. As Joti has been talking about it here, it branches into so many aspects, and even in decision making, it's actually very, very important. So how can we start creating this awareness early on AI, being that it's a very crucial and timely career to actually get into? And maybe while at it, we can talk about why it's important for women to be involved.
Sure. So these are the simple principles of capitalism, right? If you think about supply and demand, there is moments in our history over the last, I think, 200 years as a human species, we have experienced the most advancement in technology. Everything from, farming, when tilling was invented, right? When you've got, buffaloes that can, help you till the land faster, to what we've got right now is AI. If you think about how did we progress and how the humans adapted to that, going from farming to the industrial revolution, right? From the industrial revolution into what they're calling the fourth industrial revolution, right? With AI, and now you've got Web3 with like cryptocurrencies, NFT, right? So if you step back and you look at these moments and you go, the statistic you just talked about, if you understand why are we here at the 22% versus 78%, there's a whole myriad of things, of everything women have gone through over the last 200 years. But the key, I think now, and this is one of the reasons my strategy with, the company that I'm creating and growing, is that this is a portal that has opened that will allow women to come in, because there is so much demand for the skill sets. There's not enough supply. So I'll give you an example. In 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, I started to get 3 to 4 project offers a day from recruiters for conversational AI. It was mind-boggling. And to address that, I created a post on LinkedIn. It still might be there in my history, where I said, I have 10 jobs that I can make warm introductions to anybody, to these recruiters for actual roles that are open. Please direct message me. I got a total of 0 people that said, I'd like to apply. I got a lot of people that were, loving and liking and clapping, saying, oh, that's really nice of you to share. I said, okay, but these are actual jobs that people can have. So that taught me one critical thing, and because I went back and spoke to those recruiters and I said, what is going on? They said, we are having such a hard time filling these roles. And they said, your name keeps popping up on LinkedIn. I guess I was lucky, right place, right time. I chose to fall into conversational AI, 3 years ago. And this taught me the supply and demand equation in capitalism. So I'm a big believer, because I've been part of a lot of women organizations over the last couple of years. The thing that bothers me is that we're asking for handouts, from there. I don't ask for a handout. What I say is, if you have got the power and the skill set to solve a problem that is in high demand, you naturally will get propelled in. And the way to do that is to educate yourself, which is why I am bringing more and more women, not just women, but people across different color spectrums, gender spectrums, socioeconomic spectrums, because it's once in a lifetime, our lifetime, right? That this portal opens up, that you can get in, because there's so much demand, right? And I have been smelling this for the last 2 years. I've been feeling it, especially because of the pandemic. As awful as it's been, the silver lining of people being able to work from anywhere. I mean, I've literally built my business from my home office, because I've been able to access people across the world. And now there's no need to be flying around everywhere just for a 30-minute meeting with a client. And so you say women who are raising families, single women, women who are retiring from corporate and or looking for their next thing, now's the time to get it. So the barriers to entry are very low. And it's about giving that hand to women to come in now. The second part of what you asked me is, why do we need more women? We actually need a full representation of the human race. So if 78% of the people building AI are men, you've got a problem. You don't have enough representation of the human race. So I'm not saying, well, women should have everything. Women need to be part equally of the conversation, because you will fail. We will fail as a society to build and get the full promise of AI to move humanity forward if we don't have everybody at the table. That's really the argument that I'm making to everybody. Does that make sense?
It totally does. It totally does. And I'll start by where you talk about how you've built your business from home ever since the pandemic. I think we can resonate with that. We moved back to working from home when the pandemic started, and I think we've built amazing brands in that environment, allowing ourselves to network and to meet other people across the world and build those relationships. And I think I can also mention that part of the role we're playing in ensuring that there's this representation, I think part of that creating awareness for AI is that we have a brand known as Jenga School, and it is actually providing opportunities for people to get into data science and AI. And recently we had our first CEO, we appointed our first CEO who's a female, and one of her goals is actually to get 50,000 women into the data science and AI career by 2030. So I think everyone has a role to play. I think it's also understanding the importance of incorporating both genders and understanding that decisions are going to be made. And so for both parties to be there, it's actually essential that we also educate ourselves as women, trying to, go online, research what's actually going on. Is this something I can be part of? And growing our skills in that regard to ensure that we are also contributing to the changes that we actually want to see. I don't know if Victoria, you have anything to add in that regard?
Well, what I'm going to say is how, Joti, you've talked about having a balance between in the solutions that we're providing between men and women. I think that's very important, because you go somewhere and there's a solution provided, but it's not speaking to you as a woman, or it's not speaking to you as a man. So what do you do from that? And that at this point, probably there's no human to talk to explain your problem. So this goes back to what you were talking about, integrity, empathy. And part of empathy is having both sides of the spectrum talking and giving solutions to a problem, right?
So I will add one more thing. And everybody gets this, right? I say, if we're going to give birth to AI beings, it needs a father, a mother, and an entire village.
Amazing. Yeah.
I mean, this is the way to think about it, right? You need designers and technologists at the table together. You need men and women at the table. You need the village around them to raise it. And literally, the process of birthing AI beings is akin to the human evolution, right? It's, I describe AI beings as having a brain, which is natural language processing. That's the technology that is trying to mimic our brain. Having a heart, which is the design with emotional intelligence and the right kind of empathy between human and machines. How should they speak? Right? To the memory, the knowledge that we feed it, the content and the data that it uses to have that conversation, and the senses, right? We're able to pick up the phone today and talk to an AI being and not a human at the other end. We have the ability to chat with it. So all the senses, right? Computer vision, right? Full immersion. I mean, you're about to see the metaverse, right? Which is now growing. You are going to find more AI beings inside the metaverse. And if you're going to want this to be successful, again, the capitalistic hat. I tell people I'm a human first capitalist. Okay, I know how to make money, but I know how to go do it in a right way. So I'm part activist and part capitalist. I always think about, how would a decision maker think? The way that my clients, I advise them in the same way. I said, if you want success in your project, you are going to need the human race represented, because you're trying to serve the human race. You want to make money from that. But in order for that to be successful, you have to have the humans that can think around it. Like you said, my favorite example is, how do you expect a young white man sitting in Silicon Valley designing an AI assistant for a women's health application? How is that even possible, that poor young man can imagine what it's like to be a woman that's, wanting to ask questions about our health. It's a very simple example, and everybody gets that. They said, no, that makes a lot of sense. So the best way to do it is that, there's this whole thing around diversity and inclusion. And I said, yeah, I get that. But now is the time that we can actually get in, because they need it. When somebody has pain, they will take the medicine. So right now, the pain in the spaces, there is a lack of talent. And so you push and you get people in now. So there's a window over the next 2-3 years to get more of the human race in, and which gives women a fantastic opportunity to step up. But we have to let them know that there is a low barrier, right? And that's the job we play. That's our job. It's my responsibility to tell people, to tell women, you need to get in, and you need to get in right now, and don't be intimidated. The other thing around women saying, oh, we're not technical, AI is intimidating, I'm not STEM, I'm not this, I'm not that. I said, I always come back to, do you have 3 qualifications that I need? Integrity, right kind of empathy, fire in the belly, to learn and solve problems. If you have that, I will teach you everything else. It's a very simple process, really. And that immediately takes care of their fear that, of course, I can do it. Of course, you can do it.
Of course they can do it. You're so right, Joti. It's true. They can do it. And this is the time. So for every person listening out there, lady, this is the time. This is your time to shine. Take that space. All right.
Okay. I think you've brought out something actually very interesting, because I was going to ask, you're already bringing so many women into your program, and this is part of your way of creating that awareness, of ensuring that representation. And I was going to ask how you ensure that they also transition in such a way that, of course, it can be very complex if someone is getting into it and it's new and it seems all challenging. So what are some of those support structures in your program that you ensure that, okay, they're staying on track, but they're also being accountable, but they're learning, but they're having mentorship? So what are those support structures for the women who are just joining your program?
Sure. So I call this the power of the pivot, right? And I'm a self-declared queen of pivots, because, throughout my career, I've moved functionally, right? Going from being a software engineer to a product developer to marketing, going from large companies to mid-sized companies to small companies, and then completely getting out of the industry of telecom into conversational AI, right? Pivot points come from the mindset shift that, of course, I can do this, right? And you say, what is that one hook that you take to pivot into it? So for conversational AI, or even AI in general, right? You look at yourself and you go, okay, what are the superpowers that I've already uncovered? You might be a contact center agent, you might be a journalist, you might be anything. It doesn't matter what you were doing before, but you bring forth that superpower that you discovered. Now you need to discover additional superpowers to get into this pivot field. So I ran a pilot program in 2020 when I realized that there was such a demand for the talent. And I called it the Freshriver Apprenticeship and Mentorship Program. It's FAMP for short, which is also family. And my belief is that, because our education systems are broken, our hiring, recruiting systems are broken, I sort of sat down and said, could I produce talent? Could I, through mentorship? And I'd been mentoring women for several years prior to that. So I had, some experience saying, how do you mold and shape the thinking around somebody needing to move, either move up in their careers or move out or lateral or whatever that might be, right? So the number one thing was mentorship. I said, okay, if I combine mentorship and I combine apprenticeship, because no school on this planet is teaching anybody how to get ready for AI jobs. Like you say, okay, yeah, you have machine learning engineers, you've got a data scientist, you've got a data analyst, but that's only one part of the full framework of what you need to know. So I had a lot of people come to me. I have Ivy League school students, master graduates, coming to me and saying, we got this degree, but we don't know how to apply it in the world, and we cannot get a job because everybody needs experience. I'm like, it's like a chicken and an egg thing. So through that process, what I also realized is I need to provide an apprenticeship program that is real world, not just sort of, sample, just create this project and then, you're done. You're not. You need to be completely immersed in the state with which AI is being created, which is the state that I'm part of when I'm, in an enterprise doing projects. So in parallel, what I also realized is that small, medium businesses have been missing out on leveraging the power of AI. And of course, they cannot afford to hire people like me or, PhD engineers to come in and build that system for them. And I was also not very happy with some of the SaaS solutions that have been out there. I don't think they're built correctly for small, medium businesses. And so I said, I'm going to create a product at Freshriver where small, medium businesses can hire AI assistants. So I knew that market opportunity existed. And I knew I needed to train a team for myself to also go into big projects. So I had the apprenticeship created based on the product that we are building. And the way I do it is I don't tell the people that come into my program, oh, you should become a conversation designer, or you should become an architect, right? A very simple process is I speak to each person and I look for those 3 traits, right? Integrity, right kind of empathy, and fire in the belly. That's all I need. Once they come in, I tell them, here are all the projects, which is the real world product we are building to launch out. And here are 8 roles that you can choose to play. And you pick it, but it's not forever. So depending on the time you have, and by the way, these are people who currently have other jobs, because I do tell them it will take about 3 to 6 months for you to get ready. And so keep your income. Keep your job. If you're working full-time, part-time, you're studying full-time, part-time, keep that going. You need an additional 10, 15 hours in a week over a 3 to 6 month period to be in this kind of program, in a full immersion, right? And so they pick the role they want to play and they get assigned into a team and they go off. So I don't babysit these teams. I don't micromanage these teams. I tested out the concept of self-organizing teams. If you took humans, and there's a lot of experimentation, right? If you took humans that have integrity, the right kind of empathy, and a fire in the belly, and you get them to choose what role they want to play, and I create them as, there's a product manager, there's a designer, there's a developer, there's a tester, there's an AI trainer, there's an architect. And I tell them, here is the general problem. I want you to go figure out how to shape the use case. Here are all the tools. So I have access to a lot of technology. I have a lot of partners that give us access to the best technology on the planet. So I arm my team with resources. I mentor them. And I've given them an apprenticeship, which is a product I need them to build. And they've been doing an incredible job. So what I'm learning through this process is that people are discovering what their new superpowers are that they did not know they had, right? Because traditional jobs put us into a narrow, oh, you are a contact center agent, or you are a developer. Nobody's allowed to sort of step into another world. So I say, no, you want to play this role for 3 months and then you want to go play a developer role because now you see what a developer does. They asked me, can we go, learn how to be a developer? I said, yeah, you go. So by keeping things flexible and fluid and increasing the breadth and depth with which people think about problems together, keeping in mind the problem they need to solve. Right? And the tools that I give them, I said, these are tools. You are not to use technology to limit you. You do your design and you see if the technology can solve it. So I've sort of changed the paradigm of education into mentorship. So that's why I tell people, anybody can do this. If you have those 3 things, anybody can do this. And it's hard. I will not say it's easy. There's a lot of times people are like, I don't know if I can do this. Imposter syndrome. Confidence issues, because, a lot of people have been through PTSD. I literally say when you're in some corporate jobs are really toxic. Right. So shedding that. And so for that purpose, I also have a business psychologist that once a month comes on our calls and she takes the team through meditations, through real inner work, to really understand themselves, how they're feeling, to, help heal and be well. Because I tell everybody, we have to be well mentally, physically. So I tell people, I need you to eat, sleep, exercise, meditate, and rest. I need you to do that before you can handle creation of this work. So completely different. And, I don't have to ask anybody, right? I'm the decision maker. So I don't need to, say, oh, what will happen if I do this? I just go do it. So that's the beauty of, owning your own organization.
Yeah.
You've really been actually intentional about how you handle the people in your program. I think it shows that passion, creating that environment where they can thrive, they can understand how to transition, understanding that it doesn't need to happen overnight and they don't have to be perfect at it. So I'm sure it really encourages them to actually settle in it and actually find their best selves. Because of time, I'll hand it over to Victoria to take us for a break session before we proceed to Q&A.
Joti, before I take you on an icebreaker, one really important thing that I think you're doing is you said in your journey, it's not easy to find something you want to do rather than something you don't want to do, right? So it takes you a long time. For you, it took you 20 years to realize the problem that you want to zero in, but your program enables people to know what they want in a shorter span. So I think you're also solving another problem, even in your program. So that's really cool. So very quick icebreaker. Jyoti, do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Sure, go ahead.
So if you could eat one type of food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Tacos.
All right.
Vegetarian. I'm vegetarian, so vegetarian tacos.
Okay. So, and if you could take away a superpower from a superhero, what would it be and who would it be?
To take away?
Yeah. Like, which superpower would you take from a superhero?
Ooh. So I'm a big Marvel fan. I watch all the, Wonder Woman. So I think Gal Gadot, right? She did incredible job in her role. I think the superpower I would take away from her, geez, that's a tough one. What would I take away from her? I think it's her anger when she's destroying someone, because I think there was a scene where I think she let her anger get so violent. It's probably taking away some of that power, but not to apply for destroying good, but really being stronger to destroy just evil. Probably lessening that and maybe giving her a little bit more thinking around that. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up.
Thank you so much, Jyoti. We are going on a quick break. We'll come back to ask the audience questions. So keep asking your questions. Thank you.
My name is Anya Denise, and I would like to talk about STEM education in the era of artificial intelligence. Today is International Day of Girls and Women in Science and Technology. Today, there are still t-shirts and bags at shops that say, "Girls can do anything." When I see those messages, I think to myself, isn't that obvious? Of course girls can do anything. It's such a clear truth. Why aren't there t-shirts that say boys can do anything? I hope in my lifetime there will be no need for such things as Girls' Days and anything. It will just be Science and Technology Day for all.
That's really brilliant. A 10-year-old just talking about how she's sick and tired of there having to be where we're still having this gender conversation. When is the day where we'll just be having a day for people in science, and it's not has to be women, because there's no day for men in science. So it's very exhausting. They're growing up, they're trying to wonder, okay, why do we have to have this kind of dynamic? I think we'll go straight into Q&A because of time. So we have Mercy Nyaramba who asks, technology evolves very fast. What are the things one should do to stay relevant over the span of tech evolution?
So this is a very important question. It is technology is changing exponentially, and so there is no educational institution that can keep current. So I think community is the big key here. Being part of a community that keeps up and sharing the knowledge, because no one person can possibly absorb everything that comes. It can get very overwhelming when you try to, read the news and keep up with everything that's going on. What I have found, and I have the same challenge, right? How do I keep up with it? So all the organizations that I'm part of, one of the reasons I am part of them is because they teach me. So the other thing to remember is we are teachers and students all the time when it comes to technology. You have to be very open, and you also have to have a beginner's mind all the time. And when you don't know something, you ask questions. So I'm very blessed to be part of communities where we're constantly sharing information. And those dots connect. I am also a big believer in that the universe provides for all of us. When you put out there that there's, something that you really want to be able to solve, answers appear. It's really bizarre. It's happened to me over the last 3 years. So I'm a big believer in that. So community and giving. I've always been like this ever since I was little. I want to give. You give knowledge. A lot of people now tell me, why do you give away your knowledge? I said, because it comes back to you 10 times more, right? So this whole thing around, how do you keep up with what's happening in the world? Because it can be overwhelming. Social media has created more problems than it has solved. Information is overwhelming people, and causing a lot of mental health issues. So I always tell people meditation. That's the other big thing I would really advise everybody is please meditate. Keep yourself calm. You don't have to consume all the technology information, but by doing, right, which is what I tell my team all the time, by solving the problem, you go look for the information you need. It's like a buffet. I cannot stand buffets of food because I get overwhelmed when I see so much. I always go a la carte because I say, okay, what do I feel like eating today? Okay, so just keep that in mind, and join communities like this, like Impact Africa, right? Fempeak.ai. Just find your tribe. When you find your tribe, that knowledge will grow. And you have a lifetime to do it, right? To learn and solve problems and, discover your own superpower. It doesn't have to be overnight.
Okay. I think that was very well answered. I won't even add on to it. I want to also give opportunity to more people to have their questions answered. And we have Michael, who's asking, when developing your solution, did you start from scratch? If not, what platforms did you leverage on to reduce the development time?
So the way that I have created the framework of Freshriver is that we are technology agnostic and neutral. And what that means is we are not, bound or married to any one tech. And the reason for that is technology is evolving. Going back to the first question, technology is evolving so quickly, it's getting better and better. So what we do at Freshriver is we do strategy and delivery. We work for the client to solve their problem. That's what we keep laser focus on, their business outcomes. And then we select the right technology that fits them. If they have already selected a technology, then we say, okay, we'll work with whatever technology you do select, but we understand what it's capable of so that we can set expectations on what business outcomes they can expect over what period of time. There are about 2,000 plus vendors in this conversational AI technology space. 2,000, that's mind-blowing. So we have worked with the top ones, we've worked with some of the smaller ones, and we sort of understand the range of capability. Depending on the problem that you're trying to solve, you will select the right platform. There's some very advanced ones. They might be overkill for, smaller problems to be solved. But as you get more sophisticated use cases, you're going to have to look at, some of the more advanced technologies that are available on the market. And the best way to do that is to try it out yourself. I mean, that's how I learned as well, right? As I use different platforms for every single project, I started to understand that. Now, for our AI assistant for small, medium business, we selected one, but I came across a better one. So the way we have architected the solution for our product is that we're trying to make it not dependent on that. So we can switch out the brain of the AI assistant as we need, right? So it's really about how you architect your solution to be more flexible. So I keep design steady, but the brain can be taken in and out. I'm looking at different analytic solutions, right? It's really creating the whole, the guts of the system to produce, but you got to stay flexible because the tech is changing really, really fast.
All right. Thank you so much, Joti. I hope your question has been answered, Michael. And thank you for asking that question. Joti, unfortunately, time is not on our side. It's been such a great experience. Time has just flown, and I know you can feel the same thing. But would you like to just give your final comments, and then we can wind up?
Sure. No, I'm happy to connect with anybody directly. You can find me on LinkedIn at Joti Balani. I think I'm the only one there. Happy to connect and help, and and in any way that anyone needs to, get into the field, or if you just want to chat, just one-on-one exchange views. I'm happy to do that. And thank you again for hosting me. This is really an honor and a great opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Joti. It is an honor for us as well. We are so excited to have such a wonderful person coming to our show talking about solutions. So one of my main takeaways is the three things that you look for in your company. I feel like it's so incredible, and I love that you're giving you're shortening the span for people to identify what their problem, the problem they want to solve is. I mean, those are the things that have stood out for me. But there's so many other things. I can't even bring them all together. So thank you so much, Joti. It's been such a great session with you, and we hope to interact more in the future.
Thank you. Thank you again. Have a great day, everyone.
Awesome. And I think after this conversation, I hope we'll see more women in AI. This is part of our way of making sure that women are represented. Women are taking up space in all the different avenues. Just a reminder, this is brought to you by Impact Africa Network, and we're a nonprofit startup studio that is committed to changing the African narrative. We firmly believe that women are critical in this important mission, and we are committed to providing women with leadership opportunities in the startups that we develop. As a nonprofit, if you would wish to support our work, you can join our micro donations program for $30 a month, and you can be part of this exciting movement. See you in our next season, and thank you so much for joining us today.
No one is going to believe in you more than you. And if you don't believe in you, you're not going to convince your customers. You're not going to convince, your vendors or your investors. It starts with you believing that you're smart enough and resourceful enough to figure out a way out of any challenge.
You're a leader before anybody gives you the title. And some leaders that have the title aren't really good leaders.
No education is ever wasted. Whatever you study, it's not necessarily about the content of it, but it's the principles that you learn from it that you can then apply in your work life.
I think one of the things that is really helpful about being a woman as a leader is that I think a lot about intuition and awareness. I think this is another superpower that is honed in women. Our intuition and our awareness is so deep.